Hey guys, welcome to a special episode of Foresight TV. I never know what to call it when it's a special, non-traditional. But one of the things that we really like to do, it's conference season, and the conference season this year kicks off with the NIC conference in Washington D.C. next week. Both Farrah and I will be there, but we actually wanted to have just a couple minutes with each of our Senior Living Foresight partners to talk a little bit about what Matt, we actually have two questions for each of them. First question is this. What are they seeing as the big opportunities for 2023, particularly relative to the areas they're working in? And then I've also asked them to give a tip for having success at conferences. And so we are going to, we are maybe going to call it quits here for a second. So Lee, we're having a little technical problem here. Leanne, I'm going to ask you to come back on, but it says we're having trouble streaming on LinkedIn. Can somebody check that before we go?
Hi.
Hey.
I'm the ghost in the background.
I need to have somebody look at that and see, because if we're not streaming on LinkedIn, we probably ought to figure out something else here.
It says you are live. Let's check
We are
in on
live.
LinkedIn and see if we're live. And if anybody's watching, you can comment.
Yeah, if you're on there and you're on LinkedIn and you're watching this, drop something in the chat and say, hey, we can see you.
There's somebody saying on Facebook they can see us.
Right.
We got yes on Facebook. That's a good thing. We'll maybe just have to
LinkedIn, I'm not seeing us streaming.
Well,
that's
we
weird.
sure
We've never had that
appreciate our
happen.
Facebook viewers, and this is going to be a great conversation.
It is
Really
going to be a great
excited about our
conversation.
partners. And Nick is such a pivotal event every year in senior living.
Yeah. It actually looks like maybe it's working now.
Yeah.
Fingers
Okay,
crossed.
guys, we're gonna Leanne, I'll let you step off, and we're gonna pretend like the last 2 minutes did not happen. Steve Moran here. I want to welcome you to Foresight. Thank you very much, Paul. I appreciate that. I don't know what happened. Sometimes the platform we use is imperfect, but anyway, off to Nick next week. It's the beginning of conference season. There are a ton of them out there. There's lots of great content. There's lots of great networking. And the partners that make Senior Living Foresight possible are actually a big part of what makes the industry better. And so we are going to talk to each of our partners that you will have a chance to meet with at the NIC conference next week. They'll be hanging around sometimes with us, sometimes with other people. We are very selective about the partners that we do business with, that we work with. We, as you know, if you're a regular reader watcher, we are completely committed to this idea that our goal is to make the lives of people who live and work in senior living better. There are some companies out there, honestly, that only care about the money. Those are not people we want to be working with. And so we only work with the people that are actually, doing what we're looking to do. And so I have a completely random selection, and I'm going to start with Charles at CARE. And so,
Hey, Charles.
Hey, Charles.
How are you doing?
Great. So, as you look at going into NIC and you're sort of looking at 2023, since this year is, it's a little hard to say that it's all over, but we're into the 9th month. What are you seeing for 2023, and particularly in what you're doing? You might just give me 30 seconds on a commercial on what you guys are doing.
Oh, so happy to talk about what we do. So for those of you who aren't familiar with CARE, so think of it like an Uber-like platform, but like for nurses and caregivers. So we're working with thousands of communities all across the United States to help fill open shifts at a price that's like far less than a staffing agency and overtime, and allowing folks to hire people on our platform for free. So it's been a big help. I know during COVID, a lot of communities are taking advantage of what we do. It gives them access to kind of a call it a fractional labor force that they couldn't have gotten to otherwise. And so we see how we're actually bringing, wages costs down, but but allowing more wages to go to caregivers at the same point, bringing costs down for operators. So it's kind of been a win-win for everybody the last several years.
Cool. So as you look to 2023, where are you seeing the opportunities?
Well, I think for operators, I think it's going to be interesting over the next year. We're already starting to see this now, where we obviously spend a lot of time on the labor front. I think the world has started to normalize. Kind of the new normal has set in terms of what are our labor gaps, care force gaps. We have, we do know about somewhere about 15% of the frontline workforce has left the industry and they're not coming back. And we know this already. Hospitals, they're almost back at parity in post-acute senior care. They're not. So we have to deal with this reality. Where I see what's going to happen in 2023, we're already seeing operators that kind of fit two molds. One where they're really, really trying to go back to the future and go back to the paradigm where they have central scheduling and they tell their staff when to work and when not to work. And then we have others that understand that frontline workers want a lot more flexibility. They want to be able to control their schedules. They want a higher degree of level of respect than being treated as a commodity. And as it's September and October, operators are getting to budget season now, and it's really fascinating to see how they think about their budget. They're like, a lot of them are like, we're just going to budget like we always did and hope things work out. It's just not going to work out. But there are other ones that are accepting the new normal and how do they operate that way. So it'll be interesting to see what's kind of how this new normal plays out over the next several years.
Cool. And do you have one quick tip for having success at a conference?
Yeah, I'm going to NIC. This will be my, 6,000th time going to NIC. And it's all about footwear. I mean, it's what you wear. I mean, don't wear Chucks, nothing that lights up, nothing that you it's really offensive. No, seriously, actually, it's not one, like nothing good happens after midnight. And I mean that. But also, especially in an event like NIC, where you may not think somebody is your customer, but there are a lot of people that are influencers, especially this. Everyone's there to talk about debt and equity. So, we've learned that let's not get in that way. But as the value proposition at this conference is about how does it affect the value of real estate? And if you can come with a solution that actually affects the value of real estate, that's where you can make a name for yourself.
Cool. Thank you very much. And next up is Welcome Home.
Hey, Steve. How are you?
John. And so this is a little bit different for you because this is your first ever NIC, right?
Yeah, it is my very first NIC. I've done a lot of conferences. It's the first time to do this one. And I lived in DC, not far from where NIC's being held. So I'm looking forward to old stomping grounds.
Yeah, I didn't do my hotel thing good enough, and so I've been scrambling. I finally found an Airbnb over by DuPont Circle, so I'm going to be Ubering every day, but that's okay. I like DuPont Circle as a place. So I want to let's start by who you are and what you do.
Sure. So Welcome Home is a provider of a CRM solution to senior living. We started the company 5 years ago, spent 2 years listening and building, and almost 3 years ago to the day, we launched in our very first community. And the reception has been humbling and incredibly gratifying. We have almost 100 operators now on the platform. So it's been amazing as we just try to make the lives of sales and marketing professionals in senior living easier by having a tool that is intuitive and actually does work for them so they can focus on what they do best, which is interact with other human beings, whether it's professional referrers or family members or seniors themselves.
I Welcome Home and what you've done as a company, I brag on a lot in the industry because, as you know, if you'd come to me before you started and asked me for advice about starting a CRM, I would have told you were nuts and that it was a terrible idea. But what you did is come into a marketplace, look at what was out there, and then figure out how to serve the needs of salespeople and senior living organizations in a much, much better way. And you built what is clearly the very best CRM platform in the marketplace today. And I just, I wish every new startup business sort of went through the processes that you went. And we should actually probably have a whole conversation about that sometime and do that as an interview. So I know this is first Nick, so I'm not going to ask you about how to work NIC because you won't have that. But if you just have actually, let me do this first. Let's go to sort of where you see the opportunities in 2023.
Yeah, I think that the opportunities are playing offense. So much of the past few years have been batting down the hatches and playing defense. But as we are looking at the industry data across more than 1,500 communities that are on Welcome Home, as well as what we see reported out there, there is a lot of untapped potential. A number of new leads are growing over time and are coming in that shows that consumers are very interested in what senior living operators have to offer. Existing lead banks are at an all-time high as folks that inquired at any point over the past 2 or 3 years, but then went dormant. That doesn't mean that they're not interested in having that dialogue. And so for 2023, we're preaching the message of go on the offensive, right? Just it's time to fill up these buildings. The value proposition of residential living in a senior community is never stronger. What really is what we're seeing now in consumer research that we're starting to do is that folks just miss the human interaction that they had prior to COVID, and they look at, quite honestly, a lot of what their friends or family members have in senior living communities and with a bit of envy. And so we're preaching the gospel of be positive and get the buildings full. Similarly, we're saying that it's time to be on the offensive with regard to rates. Just like the news cycle, I think, hurt during COVID because most of the press that referenced senior living was fairly negative. The current press that's harping on the very real pressures of inflation can help, right? You sit there and say to current family members and seniors themselves, you love what we offer. Unfortunately, as you know, when you see in the CBS Evening News every night, cost of providing that, the cost of employing these wonderful staff members is only going in one direction, and we're going to need to take some rate.
Cool. No question about that. And do you have a tip for how to have a successful conference?
Yeah, I mean, it's not dissimilar from going to a party, which is first find your friends, right? So you find your friends and make sure you kind of either interrupt their conversations or hang around. If they're your friends, they're going to invite you into the conversation, and then take it from there. And then the second is, I found that there's no bad conversation. Right? In fact, there's almost an inverse correlation. The meetings that I think are going to be really important and impactful usually aren't, and it's those random occurrences, those things that you're like, well, why am I grabbing the coffee with this particular person that really could be revelatory? My co-founder and I met on a coffee that I'm sure both of us thought wasn't going to be amount to anything, and has been a fantastic journey.
Cool. I love that.
That's just my way of saying that I'm going to be hunting you guys down.
Yeah.
And you're going to be with us. So if you see us with John, we're introducing you.
Yeah, absolutely. So thank you. So Farah, why don't you invite Dave from Dreamscape on now?
All right, Dave. I can't wait to see you.
Hi, guys.
I love it. I'm in my kitchen,
Hey.
and you're in my backyard. I love it.
Exactly.
I love,
I am, yeah.
Dave, I just love Dreamscape and how, just like you're in the forest right now, so much happens digitally. And so Dreamscape can help so many companies from wherever they're sitting, from wherever you are. So we're excited that you're going to be at NIC, and love to hear your special tips as well about how to get out there and really network and, start conversations at NIC.
Oh, well, at NIC, so this will be my first NIC too, but I would absolutely echo what John just said. It's, I think I think at the end of the day, what we've learned is time and again is that people buy the team at the end of the day. So it's about making these relationships, creating them, fostering them. And it's just about that genuine I think, close-knit connection that this senior living community seems to have. So I think it's just go. It's have the conversations you want to have the random conversations, have fun. But I think if you can convey that you are a serious and talented company that connects with people, and they know that you're going to be able to help them. So that
And
would be
Dreamscape, you are really out there nurturing those prospects and leads. Can you give
we
a
are.
shameless plug to kind of what you're doing and why someone
Sure.
should stop and have a conversation with you?
Sure. I mean, I think where we've been in healthcare digital marketing for many, many years now, and the last 2 or 3, depending on if you count COVID or not, being in being in senior living rather, is that we know, we are helping healthcare take their story online. We're helping create their digital front door and taking them where they need to be. I often say, as a traditional marketer, it's not the storytelling that changes. All that's still there. It's just we need to take it to a different place of connection. So that's what we help them do. And I think a lot of traditional marketers like myself get nervous about doing that. And we just did a survey with McKnight, surveying the whole senior living, marketing community. And what we found is that kind of what we expected. We're on the right track. We're putting the pieces together, and we are just helping put those pieces in the right order and connect the dots. So I think there's tremendous opportunity going forward. I think the theme of 2023 is performance, right? We have so many great brands in senior living, and I'm a big fan of brand. It's what I do. But we need to connect that brand to where seniors are finding you now. And in so many ways, I could go on and on, but I think we're that conduit. We're the connector between bringing your story to where people are finding it.
So when you look at 2023, what sort of excites you?
Oh, a lot of things. I think what we're finally able to bring to bear is bringing your marketing to market yourself, not relying on outside parties. Really just bringing your story right to the internet, right to Google, right to your customer. So, and I think that that is very powerful. Because we will tell you over and over again, and we're proving it every day that SEO in particular. So Dreamscape is digital first, performance first, and we don't handle all of marketing. We handle digital really well, and so what we can do in senior living from the operator side is continually deliver a product that reduces cost per move-in, and it's an owned asset, and we're all about that too. We want you to own your assets. We want you to be in control. We just want to connect the dots for you. So
Yeah, I love what you're doing, Dave, because I think that one of the things I hear from operators and agencies pretty much across the board is that digital leads still aren't as good as everything else, and I find myself thinking that people believe that because that's true because people think it, not necessarily true. We know that the lead aggregators are generating thousands of leads every month. They're only generating them digitally. And perhaps if, working with people like Dreamscape and sort of looking into 2023, you assume that your digital leads were your best leads, it might change.
Well, and that's what we're talking about, leveling up, because I think people got to SEO or they got to one aspect or social, and it's, we say, qualify, connect, nurture, and convert. There's multi steps to this. So I think that's where the opportunity is to level up in the way we bring people down through the funnel. And yes, you can say a digital lead is not as good as a phone call, and I would probably agree with you. But the difference is just because the lead is digital doesn't mean we're trying to drive a click per se. We are actually trying to drive your best conversion method, which is still a human phone call. We want to talk to people at the community and get that real relationship going. So when we talk about digital leads, we're not necessarily talking about a click. We're talking about something that drives a phone call. It just happens to be digital. So yeah. I think it's important to parse that.
And a digital lead is ultimately a human being. So Dave, thank you very much. And next up, Mom's House.
Hi guys. Hi Farrah. Hi Steve. How are you today?
Philip. Great.
We're good. So
in Mom's House.
Tell us a little bit about Mom's House and what you do, how you make the world of senior living better.
I was going through my notes today. I have 285 notes on my iPhone, and I found one from the month we started Mom's House, which was September of 2019. And it simply says, A startup is the largest group of people you can convince of a plan to build a different future. And I sit here getting ready to go to NIC, where the industry has seen us. They are seeing us. They're aware of us. And they all say, where have you been all my life? We haven't heard a no yet, Steve. This problem of what to do with mom's house is real. It only affects about 90% of the people that are coming to these communities. I found it interesting that John talked about the lead banks are at an all-time high. And so why is that? It's not because of the neighboring competitor has a shinier chandelier or a bigger community. It's they're not ready to leave their own house yet. That house, mom's house, where their forever home, is not an easy thing to leave or to change. That change is big. And so easing that burden when it's the right time for the family is what we specialize in at Mom's House.
Cool. And can I translate that a little bit? So basically what you do is you have people who will buy the house and all the stuff and give people essentially the same amount of money they're likely to get if they were to go through the process of selling their house themselves, right?
Perfect. Perfectly said, Steve. Yes.
Is that okay?
That's Yeah, that's what we do nationwide. Yes, sir.
Yep. Perfect. So, Farrah,
I can only, I mean, I mirrored this last year, Philip. My mother, and after going through a really difficult winter in Dallas, Texas, finally realized in her 80s it was time. And so that process, though, really started years before that winter storm, and the loss of power. And that's what I love about Mom's House is you are a tool that can support the sales team early on in the process and compress that time and help that family and help that resident get through that ease and that pain that often happens in what do we do with, the cabinet, literally the cabinet my parents refinished the first year of their marriage over 60 years ago that my mother isn't going to take with her. That was a treasure. And so one of the things I love that you do is you help ease that process. And, sadly for my family, we didn't access Mom's House, and I wish we had, because we had to go through that with a number of different consultants that I had to help. My sister and I had to manage. So I really cannot stress enough to leaders in the industry that are actually looking at their prospect and their database today to say, let's start that conversation and to bring in a Mom's House to help that move in happen sooner rather than later.
Yes. I wish I would have met you before as well. We could have made that go easier. And it affects almost everybody moving into senior living. It's a very common problem. You talked about, Steve, what do we see for the future for 2023? I see change happening. If you've been in senior living for less than 12 years, you've only ever known a good real estate market. In the past 3 or 4 months here, things have changed, and they're going to continue to change. And so my message to everyone I'm going to meet at NIC is that you don't have to play defense on your heels with this. There is solutions there. I remember back in 2008, 2009, 2010, when people would beg me to buy their house because why? The houses that sat on the market were the ones that were dated, were the ones that were not updated, and a lot of these families, that's what we're dealing with Mom's House. It's been loved and cared for. It's just not up to the 2023 standard. And so the industry cares about length of stay and converting more prospects into clients. Mom's House helps that conversion.
That's right.
Okay, so here's the big question. What's your advice for conferences?
I live by the mantra of to be interested more than you're interesting. And for a guy with a big personality like me, I'm 6'3" and I wear bright shirts, right? That's not enough to be seen. But what do you do with being seen, right? What's next is if you're interested in the person, they're going to remember that because it's not what you say to them, but it's how you made them feel. And I think in relationships, when you start that at conferences, we had talked about before, people work with who they know, like, and trust. Well, how do you build that? You go out and you break bread and you share a laugh and you tell stories about how we can work together. And I've always been a connector of people. And so we talked about having coffee with that person that has nothing to do with maybe what I do, but through that conference, I'm probably going to find the right avatar for that person. And I love to connect. And I've noticed the water's warm in senior living when people start to get to know you, they start bringing me people. And so at NIC, I'm going to try to return the favor as much as I can because people have been kind to us over the past 2 years. And so go out and be interested more than you're interesting.
Great advice.
So I'm going to actually challenge everybody who's on all the partners. Let's connect and grab one of our counters here, and let's see which one of you can meet the count. Keep track of the number of people you meet through the conference, and we'll do a special something for whoever gets the biggest count. You might think it would be me because I know people, but the downside of knowing people is oftentimes I get in long conversations, which means I don't have much velocity. So, and that's really the difference. I think when you start out, if you don't know a lot of people, working on velocity and just meeting a lot of people, and you'll find some people you really connect with, and that's really terrific. So we will make sure we have a bunch of those with us. If you want one, if you're in the audience, same thing is true. Okay. Thank you, Philip. Looking forward to seeing you next week. And last but not least is Danny and Tara. I'm kind of coffee, and so I'm going to just shut up and let you talk.
Oh, Dr. Danny, we're so excited to have you. You're one of our newest partners with the Lifestone Link, and I'm, just so honored to introduce you to our viewing audience. And certainly next week at NIC, we can't wait for you to be shoulder to shoulder with us. I'm just so jazzed and excited after my years in operations to see that an established European standard, which actually everybody that's listening is higher than our HIPAA regulatory standard for skilled nursing. But you have this amazing platform. Would you share with our audience kind of what you see are the unique opportunities with Lifestone Link?
Yeah, absolutely. I think something that sets us apart first and foremost, and hello everyone, is that we really don't have an ego coming into it. Very much to, kind of what Steve touched on in the beginning is that we're here to really kind of create this sandbox and help usher seniors into this inevitable tech transition that they're all having to make regardless, especially as we see where the trends are kind of going. So for us to be able to kind of create the central hub and a one-stop shop for the residents, the staff, the family members to be able to buy products, deliver services, have that communication and that aspect for the residents. We obviously know all of the studies that have proven how good that is for their mental acuity, even prevents fall risks, things like that. All the data that's backed behind, really helping seniors stay connected, but in a really safe way. We also know that they're obviously one of the highest people that are scammed. So for us, 2023 is really about finding the right partners to help flush out and make our product the best that it can be. We're here to learn and understand the US market needs compared to Europe, since senior living is definitely a little bit different between the two continents. So, being able to really pick everyone's brain and, all the people that are willing to integrate and, again, no ego. So anything that we can white label or, help provide in order to just make sure that seniors have the access to these services. And it's not, they don't have to remember 6 different passwords to get into Walmart or, Amazon. And then also, trying to remember Facebook or things like that. So yeah, that's really what we're here to do. That's what we do really well in Europe, is to connect the people with the services and the staff to help streamline everything, and creating mutualized dashboards for the staff too, so that they're not having to log into 40 different software solutions.
Well,
which is
that's what I love about you, Dr. Danielle, is that you are a doctor of public health, and you worked for years in helping communities like our aging population in understanding how to communicate and how to connect to services. So, what's exciting for us is that we get to have you, as a partner, we get to help tell your story. And so if anyone's listening next week, when you see Dr. Danielle has some incredible experience at a global level. She was with the World Health Organization, and now at this wonderful level where she can bring this incredible connecting type of software to our residents and to our communities.
Yeah, exactly. And we're also here to help with the reciprocity of, being able to introduce companies to the European system, where very far behind in tech for most cases, in most situations. So, being able to help usher and introduce people to that side of things, and all of our clients that we have there is really important to us. And also, we're one of the first companies in this space that is structured as a public benefit corporation. So every partner that we take on, any investment that we take on, they all have to be aligned with our mission, which is helping vulnerable populations and making sure that we keep them safe, and that that we can really be this interconnected hub where people can kind of find everything that they need within a single pane of glass. So that's really important for us to make sure that no matter what our structure and the way that we're really putting our money where our mouth is, and how we're taking on partners and how we're viewing this whole structure. So yeah.
So I have a question for you. So one of the things that we've talked about internally is using your platform. What I'm really intrigued by is that you could create a pen pal program kind of thing, virtual, where you could have relationships between people who are in communities here in the U.S. and people in Europe. And to me, it sounds like a really cool idea. But maybe the biggest question I want to have for you is, as you look at senior living in the U.S. versus Europe, can you just sort of quickly rattle off a couple of differences that you see?
Yeah, absolutely. So just because of cultural differences, in Europe, senior living is much more palliative end of life hospice care compared to these resort styles where I want a fake ID to be able to join some of these communities that are incredible. It's on average between 14 and 18 months from when someone enters a facility to when they pass away. So it's not this many years or hopefully decades of people living in these types of environments. So that's actively changing now, as a lot of the youth in Europe have now had to move to larger cities and moved away from their familial bases, to be able to get better jobs, better education, whatever it might be. And so that's now really pushing to change how European senior living is working. And it's actually Austria that's the most innovative out of all of the countries that we work with. They're the ones that really help us help push that. So I would say that those are probably the biggest differences, is just the amount of time that's spent there, and just the cultural expectation that your family is going to take care of you, but how that's changing. So
cool. And the last question for you. You have advice for how to work conferences successfully?
yeah, we've definitely done, this will be our first NIC, but we've done a lot of the leading age in the ASHA. And I think one of the best things that I've learned is to never be closed off for anyone that you talk to. There's been times where, especially at ASHA, there's people that are from architecture firms, and you're like, oh, okay, I don't really see how that would be a good fit. But then suddenly you start talking, and they're like, oh, hey, wait, I would love to create a digital community before the building's even built, so that people can have interconnectivity and they can already make friends and have these interest groups, and that was a vertical that I didn't ever really think about, and using architecture firms as a reseller, because speaking to the point of senior living being a real estate business, is if you can build the technology into the blueprint of a facility, then that increases the value of the property in and of itself. So never be closed off to anything that you might think, even if you think that it might be a competitor, or just be yourself, talk and make friends, because a lot of people, once you really gain that trust in this industry, which definitely takes a bit of time, just go with it. People are a lot friendlier than you realize when you meet the right people, and when you surround yourself with people such as Farah and Steve.
Cool. Well, listen, this has been great. So why don't Leanne, if you can, from the back, first off, I want to say thanks to Leanne Hubbard, who you will not see, but who is actually making all this work in the background and doing the switching and taking care of the banners. And so I just really appreciate that. But let's bring everybody back on.
The Brady Bunch.
Almost Brady Bunch like, and these are some of the greatest people in senior living who are completely sold out, committed to making it better. Look for these people. Philip will have a bright shirt on. Charles will have fancy shoes on. I'll have fancy shoes on. Look for the care. And John and Dave and Danny and everybody will be hanging out with us. And we just, you know, we are so grateful for your support at Senior Living Foresight. We're so grateful for your passion for, you know, making the industry better. And I know sometimes it feels like, you know, just throwing one starfish back into the ocean at the time. So let's just sort of go real quickly. Any last one final word from each of you, and we'll go in the same order we started. Charles?
Yeah, you go to Nick, plan to get sick afterwards. Everyone gets the post-Nick ick, as we call it. 90% chance you'll get COVID or something like that. It's going to happen. I meet a lot of people.
Thank you. Yep, lots of people. About 3,000 people signed up. John?
Drink lots of coffee. I'm going to be probably making my way to wherever they're being served, and more or less start at the back, work the way to front. By the time I'm done with the conversations I make along the way, I'll need to get back in line. So
Great. They have better coffee than the average conference, by the way. I will tell you that, and lots of places to get coffee. Dave?
Well, Steve, I think we have to go shopping beforehand because I need to up my jacket game, my shoe game, and I'm staying up by DuPont Circle as well. So we'll Uber down together. But no, I'm excited to go to my first NIC, and just to as you know, as Danny said, to have these conversations. That the best ones are the ones where you don't know where they're going to lead, and sometimes they lead amazing places. So that's it.
And Danny, I'm going to jump to you because I know you have an airport, and then we'll finish up with Phil.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I've got an hour and 20-minute drive to get there. Yeah, I'm looking forward to meeting all of you guys. Definitely seeing how we can help you enter Europe if that's something that you're interested in, and just being able to meet people with like-minded missions as such as ourselves. So can't wait.
Great. And Philip?
A lot of these events include having a drink or two, and so my suggestion is have a water every fourth drink and look into liquid IVs because it'll help you the next morning maybe not get that Nick ick. So stay ahead of that. We're going to be shaking a lot of hands, meeting a lot of people. I hope to go there and listen to the people that own the communities of what their true concerns are to see if my solution fits, and if it does, go forward.
Yeah, and I would say that's probably one of the best pieces of advice that I can give is you need to do a lot more listening than talking, and particularly if you're on a solution provider vendor side, the tendency is to want to do all the talking, and listening will, you know, you go up and you ask somebody, what do you do? When they get done telling you, they're going to turn around and ask you the same question, and that becomes a mix for a better conversation. So with that, thank you very much. See you guys in just a few days. Great conversation today.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you,
Safe
Steve.
travels. See
Thanks,
you.
everybody.
Thank you, guys.
Bye all.
Bye-bye.